Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the special immigration show brought to you by Sakshi TV. My name is Ranjit. We are here today with the prominent attorney, Ms. Sheela Murthy, to discuss the latest updates on Visa Bulletin, followed by frequently asked questions. You can call the numbers displayed on the screen and ask any question related to immigration, and the attorney will be glad to answer. We will start taking calls in a few minutes. Before starting the show, I would like to repeat the disclaimer. Please note this show does not provide any legal advice. It is general in nature and it is only for informational purposes. Sakshi TV news and agents are not responsible in any way for your actions. Please use the information at your own risk. For private consultations or case-specific issues, please contact attorneys. You all know very well Ms. Murthy is the founder, president, and CEO of Murthy Law Firm and Harvard Law School graduate. Also, she's the one behind the famous Murthy.com website. Before getting into the show, Ms. Murthy, could you briefly introduce yourself and then we can start?
Thank you very much, Ranjit. Good afternoon or good evening to all of you. It's a pleasure to have you. As Ranjit just explained, we started Murthy.com 27 years ago, and I had been practicing for a few years before that. And our focus is to educate, to empower, and enlighten you on the latest changes in US immigration law so that you do not feel alone in that journey. We have the weekly Murthy Bulletin, the weekly question and answer on the forum, the daily question and answer on the forum. We have monthly teleconference calls, which you are welcome to participate. All of that's worth several hundreds, if not thousands of dollars in attorney time. But we do that as a free service to help each of you as you're going through the process. So thank you for signing in today, and hopefully we can educate you and empower you and enlighten you and answer some of your questions as well in the process. Welcome.
Thanks, Ms. Murthy. Before starting the show, could you please give us latest updates on the Visa Bulletin and how things are progressing?
So we had a meeting with Charlie Oppenheim, which I had explained, I think, about a week ago. From the US Department of State. And I know that there were additional updates that were provided yesterday and today by both the US Department of State and USCIS. Charlie has explained very clearly that they expect a lot of unused immigrant visa numbers, partially because of the two immigrant and the non-immigrant visa bans. The immigrant visa ban introduced by the prior administration, the prior president at the start of COVID-19, shutting everything down until December 31st and then extending it until March 31st of this year, which has resulted in majority of the immigrant visas not being used. So at the latest estimate, from what I understand, based on our discussion right now, Ranjit, you said that it was about 142,000, which was around what he had said, that it would be around double. So it's about 292,000 immigrant visas that we expect not to be used in the employment-based category. Plus, we have family-based numbers because the unused from the family-based numbers, as you all may know, spill over into the employment category. So we're going to have a lot of numbers. At the end of the day, the USCIS is required to use it. One of Biden's, the bill that President Biden had submitted or proposed under the US Citizenship Act of 2021 was to use and recapture all of the unused immigrant visa numbers for the last 10 years and make it available almost indefinitely, because now you have a certain window of opportunity to use it. Otherwise, we end up losing it forever. And so the idea is to continue, at least that's Biden's plan, is to use it in a manner that it can be used permanently without having to worry about the per year unused quota. So we can actually recapture all of them.
Thanks, Ms. Murthy. We have a caller, Akshaya from California. Hi, welcome to the show. Please go ahead and ask your question.
Hi, Ms. Murthy. It's nice talking to you. So my question is regarding H4 EAD. And my question is that, so now with the biometrics being suspended, can we be hopeful to get EADs with much less processing time or before the current one expires? Or do you still anticipate delay and not going back to the normal processing time?
I don't know if it'll go back to what it was before in terms of processing time, but definitely we expect an improvement because the biometrics fingerprinting requirements, which were instituted by the prior administration, clearly added a lot of time to the entire process. Again, it almost feels like it was a ruse by them to use that as an excuse to because they had tried, if you remember, to eliminate the entire H4 EAD program, but they did not propose it and did not introduce it. So at this point, I'm sorry, were you trying to say something?
Yeah, so will that, can I expect my EAD to be much faster than the last year's delay due to COVID and biometrics?
We hope it'll be much faster. I don't know if it'll be much faster, but we hope it'll be much faster because it was taking 8 to 13 months as of the most recent from the few months ago because of elimination of the EAD requirement for H4 and L2 and E spouses, E dependents on the EAD. We are hoping that it will greatly increase the processing times, and the EAD should get approved faster, but we don't know at the end of the day how quickly is fast, because remember, there is such a huge backlog that they have to clear up. So it may ultimately become much faster, but I think in the transition in between, depending on when your EAD is expiring, it may not happen. It may happen closer to 6 to 8 months instead of, before it was 3 months. Now it is 8 to 14 months. So I don't know, it'll be somewhere between. It won't be 3 months, maybe closer to 6 to 8 months, at least till they clear up the entire backlog.
Thanks for the call, Akshay. We have another caller, Harika from Maryland. Hi, Harika. Welcome to the show. Please go ahead and ask your question.
Yeah. Hi, Sheela Murthy. I'm Harika. So my question is, I would like to know if I am eligible to file litigation for my H4 EAD. I've filed my H4 EAD in the month of April, but I filed my initial H4 EAD in 2020 July, but that one I just got approval in the month of March 2021. I just got it for 20 days, and I have to apply again as depending on my spouse's H1. So I would like to know if I am eligible to file any litigation.
So the question is, remember, this is not in the statute, Harika. So the H4 EAD is something that was issued by regulations by the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, as you know, under the Obama administration. And yes, of sure, anybody is eligible to file. I can sue anybody, you can sue anybody. The question, of course, that I think you're asking is, hey, if I invest my hard-earned money, time, effort, energy, and money, will I get the result I want? Because of the balance of powers and the separation of powers, judges are generally willing to slap the wrist of the USCIS if there is excessive delays. But if the reason that you got the 20-day H4 EAD was because your spouse's H1B was expiring in that much time, then what we should have done and what would ideally have been required is if the spouse's H1 was extended while you were waiting for the H4 EAD extension, one of the suggestions that we try to do is we actually interfile or send in the spouse's H1B approval notice to the pending case. It may or may not work, but at least you are trying every possible any possible way to try and get as much time as possible on your H4 EAD instead of being stuck with the 20-day requirement. If you file a suit right now, Harika, the court is going to say it's not the fault of the USCIS if you only had 20 days remaining. Now, their excessive delay for the first time from last July to this year, April or May, that we could have filed a lawsuit at some point. But from what I'm hearing from a lot of judges and people, they're saying that these lawsuits are not as very successful like they were before, because the government is saying 6 months is a very reasonable time for processing. So since you've just filed it now, I don't know that it's going to be particularly beneficial for somebody like you.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Harika.
Thanks for the call, Harika. Talking about delays, we all very well know that USCIS is so backlogged, and coming to the visa numbers of the green card, they might not be able to process all the green cards anyways. So my question is, let's say if USCIS is wasting so many number of green cards, is there any chance of having a litigation or something that will give relief to many, because it looks like USCIS is going to waste like thousands of green cards this year, which could have paved a way for a lot of immigrants, especially Indians, who are stuck in backlog for years and years. So what are the possibilities, and what do you think, anything that can be done if at all USCIS is wasting is the green cards?
So because the numbers flow over to the next year, so we still can use them, obviously. But yes, it's very frustrating because the US Department of State wants to move numbers more forward, as Charlie Oppenheim has explained, but USCIS cannot handle the excessive extra volume. They're already so backed up, and they're not even fully caught up or even starting to get caught up with the October 2020 filings. I think what Charlie had told us, I remember in September when we had the meeting with him, was he would move it slowly for the next, starting from that month, every month for the next 6 months. But because they had underestimated how many cases would be filed by Indians primarily, they were taken aback, and USCIS got so many tens of thousands of cases that they could not handle the pressure and the weight. So when you say, should we file a lawsuit, again, it's like Harika's question. Anybody can file a lawsuit, but will we succeed? What can we get? What can a judge do other than make an agency do what it's supposed to do? Under the law, under the statute, under the regulations, under the act of Congress under which they were created, is to do their darn job. But for whatever reasons, especially in the last 4 years under the prior administration, they have not been very quick and not hesitating to cash the checks and the fees that we all pay as employers, employees, family members. Like Harika was just saying, H4 EAD, spouses, they cash the checks very quickly, but when it comes to providing the service, they're not very quick and diligent and taking good care of us. So to force the government to do its job, that's a much more tenuous lawsuit, meaning that it may not be as easy to win, because at the end of the day, we have to show how the agency failed to do what they were supposed to do by Congress, which is to do their damn job, which they are not doing. So yes, you could sue them, you could file a suit, but at the end there's something called doctrine of sovereign immunity, where a federal government or its agency or its officers are protected if they are performing their tasks because of them having government protection. That's why there's also something called diplomatic immunity, where consular officers or consulates, when they do certain crimes in other countries, they are protected. Similarly, the government officials acting in their official capacity enjoy something called doctrine of sovereign immunity. So if we sue them saying you failed to do your job, they can say, okay, sue me, but what has that got to do with me? Because I'm just doing what I can do. I have limited resources, limited hours. I'm not willing to do more because this is my job. Certainly we can, push them. Certainly we can sue them, file the lawsuits to overwhelm them so that they will hopefully get their act together, because it was bad before, but it was never so bad like we have seen. And in the last 4 years, it went slowly from bad to worse. And it's really really gone down to the bottom right now. I don't know how much worse it could get, but the Biden administration has promised, as we just saw, by eliminating the barriers, by asking for feedback, for trying to improve the systems, the processing times, by eliminating the fingerprinting requirements. They are trying their best to undo a lot of the incredible damage. If they want to eliminate immigration law, if the government wants, they have to go through Congress and eliminate it. The administration cannot cheat and steal and do things that they are doing, which in my opinion are illegal, because they're violating the act of Congress, where they are supposed to process H4s, H4 EADs, immigrant visas, immigrant petitions, H1B visas, stampings, consulates, approvals at USCIS and even at the consulates. But now they're using, I understand COVID-19. I understand in parts of the world where they're shut, they can't do their job, country like India. But a lot of the cases just require the visas to be sent by mail. The immigrant visas have to be approved, but they're just creating this huge backlog purposefully. I think it's just part of the prior administration's almost tricks to try and harass, harm employers, employees, and families to get their immigration benefits as required under US law, immigration, and policies.
Thanks, Ms. Murthy. Thanks for your insights. Another question we have is it does DHS or USCIS has the authority to roll over the visas if at all they think that's something they can do, at least to you know protect a lot of people and give green cards? Is it possible, or does it have to be Congress? Something has to be done only with Congress.
They can rule it over to the next year. Like we said, this year we absolutely have the numbers, but if it's year upon year upon year, then that's why Biden introduced that US Citizenship Act of 2021 to require intervention by Congress if you're trying to go back for the past 10 or 15 years to recapture every single number that was unused so that we can actually get to use it this year. However, Department of Homeland Security, USCIS, certainly if DHS chooses as the agency in charge of the USCIS, among other agencies, to make, for example, one immigrant number per family, we could use it, we could almost everything could become current as opposed to one per person, which we have right now, where, for example, a wife, a husband, and a child are 3 immigrant visa numbers. We could make it as one if DHS agrees. That still won't solve the problem. What Charlie Oppenheim and the US Department of State is saying, which is the gross underusage of immigrant visa numbers between the US consulates around the globe and USCIS approving, processing and approving USCIS adjustment of status 485 cases within the United States. So to answer your question very specifically, to go back year upon year, we can't just do it unlimited. It has to be an act of Congress, but in respect to, for example, like using the unused numbers from last year for this year, that's not a problem. We can do that. But if it continues to build, just causing this backlog and we lose it, because at some point it's a use it or lose it. It doesn't continue forever, which is what Biden wants to go back, I think, for the last 10 years and recoup all of those unused immigrant visa numbers.
Thanks, Ms. Murthy. And also there was a proposal of, doing premium process for EADs, and I believe 485s were also included. At least if they get that in picture, a lot of people who wants it faster can, apply it in premium and get it faster. And that way USCIS also get money and probably hire a lot of people.
Lot of money. I think it's 2,500, which I think is outrageous amount. But people are so desperate because this is lives and livelihood involved. And it's not just a proposal, Ranjit, it's actually passed. The law has been passed by the US Congress last year in October, but the USCIS has not released the process, the methodology, the form to approve the H4 EAD and the I-485 EADs. All of those, it's just so simple and straightforward. I don't understand it because we have premium processing for H-1Bs, but they haven't set it up for EADs for 485s and H4. But that is the law that was passed, saying that the person applying just has to pay the extra $2,500. The law is passed. Everything is done. All USCIS. So in parts of the law which said, what are the barriers? We said, just make the premium processing, open it up, create the forms, require USCIS to just set up the form and the process so that people can actually get the EAD approved within 15 days. It's ridiculous that they take 8-10 months. And then because of their incompetence, we are now required to spend an extra $2,500, which is not small change for, average hardworking families and people who have to pay this money. It is almost like rewarding incompetency and bad behavior by saying, here, take extra $2,500 so that you do your job so that I can, continue to feed my family and pay my mortgage. But now we are grateful even for something like that. It's very sad.
Yes, true, Ms. Murthy. I think in the last few days, I think DHS announced that they are going to give TPS to Haiti and Burma. Hopefully they do it for all other countries, especially for India, because a lot of people got stuck here having visa issues, can't go back, can't come in. It's kind of similar situation. They should consider at least extending automatic extension of current visas or, TPS or something else to India as well and all other countries on visas, especially in the times of this epidemic.
Yeah, it's been quite a nuisance. I've done lots of consultations, a lot of discussions with people who have filed B2 extensions for their parents, elderly parents, some of whom have diabetic or obesity or heart conditions, and they are very nervous to travel back. And they already, some of them were ready to travel back last year in April, May, but they were hoping that they would send them back. And now they are doing extension after extension after extension, paying a lot of money for it, getting stuck here. Some of them are thinking they have to wait for the USCIS to approve the extension in order to file the next extension, but that is not allowed. You are required, if you had requested 6 months from April 1st, say to October 1st, you have to file your extension before October 1st for the next 6 months, even if USCIS has not bothered to respond to your original B2 extension of status. And again, you have to do it each time and pay the fees to renew the B2 extensions within the United States. Of course, ultimately, USCIS may or may not approve it, but we hope because of COVID-19 that they plan to approve all these people, because what could they do? They didn't want to send travel in the middle of a pandemic. India has become even more dangerous at this point in the last few months. And sometimes, especially in the beginning, India wasn't allowing flights from US, and now America isn't allowing flights from India, unfortunately. So it is almost impossible for people to travel. It's very, very difficult at this time. So I agree with you. We need to get some relief. And Burma recently, Myanmar got relief, temporary protected status, but that just gives you temporary protected status during the ongoing sort of temporary emergency, and allows those who need to file EAD card, but then you're stuck in the same EAD backlog like the rest of the people with even greater delays maybe.
Yeah, true. Also, there are a lot of people whose H1B has maxed out and they haven't got POM or I-140 on time. You very well know nowadays PWDs are taking like 6 months, and POM is taking 9 months, and this process is like, yeah, it's at least taking 18 months to a year to 2 years. Is there anything that we can do on this Department of Labor thing? Because Department of Labor is I know it's backlogged, but then it's too much of time for a lot of people and inconvenience. And I know they don't have any service fee like USCIS, but then is there any way that people can get it faster?
So there is no premium processing, there's no expedite. One of the reasons that Department of Labor has repeatedly asked for funding and charging a fee, but then it'll become like the employers and employees and families become their clients, but their clients are supposed to be protecting the US worker. So that is the reason that Congress has hesitated to charge a fee for the PERM labor certification processing. For the last 20 years, I remember they were at one time talking about 10% of a person's salary to be the government processing fee. So I'm afraid to open that Pandora's box, Ranjit, because I know each time we open the fee, only the fees goes up, the service goes down, quality of work goes down. So I don't know what benefit we'll get. I tell people, please do not wait. Start, from the day you entered, you had 6 years on H1B or 5 years on L1B or 7 years on L1A. Minimum 2 years before, and the L1s, of course, have to switch to H1B 2 years before, start your PERM, because even if it takes 6 months for the prevailing wage determination, and then you file your case, 365 days, 1 year after you have filed the PERM, you can keep on getting H1 extensions in 1 year increments. Then, of course, once the PERM gets approved and the I-140 gets approved, then you can get 3-year H1 extensions in 3-year increments, as long as the priority date is not current, and 1-year increments if the priority date is current. So since you know that when your H1 is expiring, don't waste time. Now, because of what's happening with the pandemic, it's a great time for people to actually, if they could, in the last 1 year, 1.5 years, traveled back, waited in India, worked remotely, so that time that they're in India, the PERM could have been filed, the I-140 could have been filed, and then they can come back after the 1 year, either to be counted on a fresh cap filing, or if they don't want quota filing, then based on the 365-day rule of the PERM filing, you can get 1 year extension. Or if you're abroad and the PERM and I-140 are approved, come back on the 3-year H1 extension, get the approval and come back. But honestly, now is quite a good, well, I don't mean now in India with the pandemic being horrendous. I mean, except for the last 2-3 months, for the past 1 year, I know a lot of people who went back to India to work so that they could try not to count that time on the H1 towards the 6-year quota or cap.
That sounds good. One question here, Ms. Murthy. So a lot of people have this conception that you cannot file PERM or I-140 when they are not in US. Can you just break that myth?
Yeah, no. So the green card is based on the concept of a future job offer, not on a current job offer. And so the employer can file for you, start the process, do the process, complete the process when you're anywhere in the world outside the country. H1B is to work in the country today, but green card is on the future job offer. So your employer absolutely can start the process when you are in India or anywhere else in the world. The employer can get the prevailing wage determination, file the PERM, get the PERM approved, file the I-140 petition, and then bring you on the H1 or bring you as a green card holder if the priority date is current, because you were able to get an old priority date from a prior employer's I-140 approval. I know a lot of times I do consultation where someone says, I went back to India 10 years ago, my employer had filed green card and I've gone back. Can I come back and work either for that employer or a new employer? If that employer is not willing to give you a job or you don't want to go there, but you have a new job, that priority date can be very, very helpful for you to now file with a new employer, port the earlier priority date and continue the green card and file and enter US as a green card holder, which is how a lot of family-based immigrants work. Employment can also work, especially if you have ported a much earlier priority date to a new case.
Thanks, Ms. Murthy. Thanks for your insights. We are towards the end of the show. Again, it was a great session with interesting topics. Thanks for all the callers and watching the show. Please call in every Tuesday at 3 p.m. EST to watch the special immigration show with Ms. Murthy. Again, it's every Tuesday at 3 p.m. EST on Sakshi TV. This is Ranjit signing off. Bye, Ms.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.